Hello friends, I'm going to attempt to teach you all how to play canasta. Okay, so canasta is a card game played with 4 players, 2 sets of partners, all sitting around a table, and the goal is to ultimately reach 8,500 points. You're going to do that through a series of probably multiple hands, and it probably usually takes like 40 minutes to usually at most an hour to complete a hand, or actually a game of canasta. So that would be a couple hands. Let's see, I'm just trying to think about what to start with. I think we should start off with terminology. First of all, each player is dealt 13 cards, and you're playing with 2 full decks of cards, and you're playing with all the cards in the decks. That includes jokers. So you're going to end up with 4 of everything times 2, so that's 8 of everything plus 4 jokers total. Okay, and the way it starts is the 13 cards are dealt, and then the first player draws 1 card, and now that player has 14 cards. That player is looking to make an initial meld. An initial meld is going to require a certain amount of points, and that certain amount of points progresses as the game progresses. So I have your initial meld required chart here, and so we're all going to start out with 0 points. So we're all going to start out with needing an initial meld of 125 points. Okay, and so an initial meld is going to look something like this. It's going to be maybe say 2 aces and 2 wilds. I don't know if I mentioned or not, but jokers and 2s are wild. And it could be 3 of something, okay? 3 of anything. So it could be, doesn't have to have any wilds in an initial meld, as long as you can get to 125 points. So an initial meld is 3 of something, and that 3 of something could be 3 of the same, or 2 of something plus a wild. Okay, so I guess you're probably wondering how you're going to get to your 125 points to lay down your initial meld on the table so that you and your partner can start working together. The goal and the way you end the hand is by one person ends up with 0 cards in their hand, or you simply just run out of cards to pick up. When all the cards are picked up and in somebody's hands, played on the table, and there's no more left, you don't just like reshuffle like you do in Skip Bow. You end the game there, or the hand, okay? So how are you going to get to the 125 points? All right, this is what I'm going to do. A joker is worth 50. A 2 is worth 20, which a 2 again is wild, like a joker. An ace is worth 20. A 7 is worth 5. We're not going to talk about the 3s right now, okay? 4, 5, and 6 are worth 5 points, and then 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, and King, they're worth, I don't know if that worked or not, they're worth 10 points. Okay, so let's go back to this initial meld example that I had, and what I had here was 2 aces worth 20 apiece, a joker worth 50, and a 2 worth 20, so that's 20, 40, 60 plus 50 is 110. And then the kings are worth 10 each, so that's 120, 130, and 140. So I've got my required 125 initial meld points. I can go ahead and lay those down. So I'm going to lay that down, and then I'm going to discard. Discard's going to be facing up. And now play proceeds on to my opponent to the left. And my opponent has the chance to pick up a card, the one that I laid down, or a new one off of the pile. That hasn't been turned over yet, and she has the opportunity to put together a meld just like I did, but she's going to need 125 points. say she doesn't have 125 in her hand to lay down. She doesn't have enough melds to put together to get an initial meld of 125. Then she's going to simply discard. And then play progresses to the person to her left. That's my partner. Now my partner has the opportunity to add to what I laid down. So she can lay down an ace. She can lay down a king. Interestingly enough, she cannot lay down a king and a wild. You can only lay down wilds in the initial meld, okay? And you can only lay down 2 in any canasta. So you can lay them down initially, or you can lay them down at the end. So after I get 5 kings, then I can start laying 2 more wilds down to close out the canasta, but you can't do it in between. So it's beginning and end. The wilds are at the beginning and end, they're not in the middle. So just keep that in mind. So like I said, she can add to what I laid down, and we're working together to close these canastas out. And once they're closed, they're closed. Like obviously a canasta 7, there's only 8 of anything. Our opponents aren't going to be able to have a canasta of kings once we close kings. The canasta terminology that I need to talk to you about, I don't think I mentioned it. There's clean canastas. Those are canastas that don't have any wilds. And then there's dirty canastas, and those are the canastas that have wilds. And like I said, you can only have 2 wilds in any canasta, and they have to be at the very beginning or at the very end, not in the middle. We're going to keep playing and playing and playing. At some point, since we're trying to get to 8,500 points to win, I mean, I guess you probably could win in one hand if you went nuts with the canastas. You're not going to be able to get like a whole bunch of points with just the 13 cards that you were dealt, right? Between you and your partner. You're going to need more cards. So there's what's called picking up the pack, okay? So say we've been playing and there's quite a few cards laying down on the discard pile, the cards that are face up. And I have 2 of anything, say, 2 6s, okay? And the card that's facing up is a 6. Well, now if I want, I can pick up that 6, lay it down with the 2 6s that I have in my hand. That's a meld of 3 that you have to start with a meld of 3, okay? And after I do that, then I pick up everything that was under that 6. That's called picking up the pack. So now I have all these cards in my hand. I can hold on to them, or I can just start laying them down, you know, as I have melds of 3 or adding to melds that are already going. And I do that, and that's a way to get more and more canastas, okay, so that you can beef up your points. Like I said, you're not normally going to win a game of canasta in one hand. It usually takes multiple hands, okay, 3 or 4 maybe, depending on how the game's going for you guys. So, but if you want to try to get a lot of points, you're going to want to pick up that pack. So let's talk about points and scoring at the end of the game. And the game ends, the hand ends, not the game, the hand, it ends when there's no more cards to pick up, or someone goes out. So the cards are worth this. Did I already go over this? Well, I'll do it again. Jokers are worth 50, 2s are worth 20, aces are worth 20. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I already did this. 5, 7s are worth 5. 4, 5, and 6 are worth 5. 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, and King are worth 10. Yeah, because I remember I couldn't get y'all to see that. All right. So, clean canastas are worth 500 points, and dirty canastas are worth 300. Some interesting things to note over here are the, can you see that? The wilds canasta. A wild canasta is any combo of jacks and wilds. And, no, jacks and 2s. Jokers and 2s. Sorry. Can't edit. I'm just going to keep going. Wild canastas are combinations of jokers and 2s. And you need 7 of those. So if you complete a wilds canasta, it's worth 2,000 points. That's a big boost to your score. The problem is if you start one and you don't finish it, you get stuck with 2,000 points. Same thing with the aces canasta. A clean aces canasta, meaning all aces, is worth 2,500 points. But if you start it and you don't finish it, negative 2,500 points. So that's something you got to keep in mind. Also, when you are discarding cards, say you picked up the pack, or you're the first player and you're starting out and there's no cards to see that are turned face up, that's called an empty discard pile. Well, you cannot discard on an empty discard pile jokers, twos, aces, sevens, or dead cards. And dead cards are cards that have completed canastas. So for instance, if the game's progressing and I pick up the pack and now it's time for me to discard and there's nothing there, it's an empty discard pile, and say my opponents have completed the nines canasta, I cannot discard that 9 that I have in my hand. It's called a dead card and it can't go down on an empty pile, just like the jokers, twos, aces, and sevens cannot go on an empty discard pile. So anyhow, just something to keep in mind as you're managing your discarding. Now, let's say that someone's gone out, okay? No cards left. Now we need to count up the score. And that's where we go back, and anything left in your hand, you're going to get deducted these points. 10 for these, 5 for these. You're going to get deducted 5 for the 7, 20 for the ace, 20 for the twos, 50 points deducted for any wilds that you're stuck with. Special cards to think about getting out of your hand so that you don't get stuck with them are sevens and aces. So if you have 2 aces in your hand, or 2 sevens, or 1 ace or 1 7 in your hand, no problem. It's just going to get deducted those points. But if you have 3 or more sevens in your hand, you're going to lose 2,000 points. I don't have that written down, but that's what it is. If you have 3 or more aces in your hand, and you're stuck with those, then guess what? 2,000 points. Sorry. So it's just, yeah, a lot to manage. You're trying to accumulate a lot of points, obviously, with these canastas over here, but you're also trying not to get stuck with these high value, risky cards. And you want to go out first so that you don't get any of these cards deducted from your hand. Threes, we'll go back to that. They're very complicated, and I'm sorry, but we just can't go into it right now. There's I don't really even understand the rules around the threes, but we will learn them at a later date. The reason why I'm not going nuts trying to figure this out or explain it to you is because there's not a lot you can do about threes. So when you have threes in your hand, or you pick up a 3, you have to immediately put it back down on the table, on your side with where your melds are, and you draw another card. Let's say, so for every 3 that you have, you replace it with another card. So you don't end up missing out on cards, but what you do is you do end up accumulating 3s, and the scoring is pretty complicated. And depending on what combination of 3s you have, how many, you're going to either lose or gain points at the end of the game or the end of the hand, depending on what's going on with your 3s. So just know that there's not a lot you can do about it, so we're not going to go nuts. There's one more thing that we're not going to really talk about right now. I hate to even mention it. It's called special hands. Special hands are a great way to boost your points, but it's very complicated, and I just think it's best to save it for another time. So we will have a great time learning about special hands another time. For now, let's get going with our canasta and see how we do and move forward. All right, thank you. Have fun.